All right, everybody, welcome back to the #1 television program in the history of the entire universe. I am Brian Lee Durfee, author of The Forgetting Moon, The Blackest Heart, and The Lonesome Crown, all three books published by Simon & Schuster's Saga Press. Today I am reviewing Voyager, book number 3 in Diana Gabaldon's magnificent and popular Outlander series, which now encompasses 9 books total. I don't know how long the series will be, but there's 9 books now, and she's been working on these since the late 1980s. I think Outlander, book 1, came out in like 1988. Book 2, Dragonfly and Amber, came out in like 92, and this one came out in 1994. And these are big books. Each one of these books is about 1,200 pages each. Now, if you want to watch my review of Outlander and Dragonfly and Amber, all you need to do is type in Outlander and my last name Durfee, or Dragonfly and Amber and my last name Durfee. Type that into your YouTube search bar, and the book reviews that I made will magically appear upon your television screen, or your computer, or your phone, whatever you watch on. I'm not judging you on how you watch these videos. I just want you to watch. That's how you find my book reviews on YouTube. Anyway, Outlander, book number 3, Voyager. Let's talk about the covers first, because you know I love graphic design and cover illustration. Well, these are pretty simple. I mean, this is not the original first edition hardcover of Voyager. This is a reprinted edition to match, and they all match. I mean, there's no difference between the paperback and the hardcover. Usually there is. One thing I love about this series is, well, even on book number 2, Dragonfly and Amber, everything matches up. Both paperback and hardcover. And if I was to show you the entire series I have all matches like this. Each book just has a different color and a little different logo. But anyway, I reviewed, so I spent about 6 days over the weekend reading Dragonfly and Amber and Voyager. So I'm reviewing them back to back. Loved every minute of both books. But let's talk about Voyager. Starts out where book number 2 left off. Now here's the thing. There's a few mysteries, a few cliffhangers from book number 2. Spoiler alert, right at the beginning of this book, we find out some of the cliffhangers, what happened. Well, that's how episodic television and books works. One episode ends with a cliffhanger. The next episode, you kind of figure out what happened. That's the case here. So we do figure out, spoiler alert for books, you know, slight spoiler alert, but not really. I imagine anybody that's watching this video probably is a fan of this series anyway, so I'm not really spoiling anything. But anyway, so yes, Jamie Fraser. These are time travel novels. Let me just set them up first. They're time travel novels. Claire was a World War II nurse. She got swept into a time travel portal in Scotland. It's a ring of standing stone, and she walked into it, and she was swept away to the 1700s in Scotland, where she meets Jamie Fraser. Lots of adventures happen. She gets pregnant by Jamie Fraser. There's the Jacobite uprising at Culloden Moor that she's trying to stop. Jamie wants to fight it, but she knows that the Scottish are going to lose that battle. She tries to stop it. Things happen. End of book 2. The battle actually happens. Culloden Moor, the Jacobite uprising, it happens. They weren't able to stop it, and then she's whisked back to her own time, the 1940s, and she does not know whether Jamie survived the battle or not. That's the story thus far. Also, Jamie got her pregnant, and when she goes back to her own time, she's pregnant with Brianna, who, now what sucks about that is she's already, in 1940s, she's married, so when she goes back into time with Jamie and gets pregnant with this guy, and then this baby, and then she goes back to her own husband, now she's got to explain how she got pregnant. Virgin birth, I don't know. She's got some explaining to do, which she does in the first 2 books. And nobody believes her, of course. But anyway, let's get to this book. We find out that Jamie Fraser actually survived the Battle of Culloden Moor. Most everyone died, but Jamie Fraser somehow. And we find this out through Claire and her daughter Brianna and their friend Roger Wakefield, and because they're in 1968 in Inverness, they are trying to research what happened to Jamie Fraser. And a lot of that I talk about in this book, so we won't, in my review of this book, so we won't rehash any of that. But anyway, let's just say that this book bounces between 1746 and 1968 a lot, between Jamie's survival of the Jacobite uprising and his stay in prison because he's branded a traitor, and then in 1968 we get a lot of scenes, and this book bounces back and forth a lot between the 1700s and the 1900s. Like I said, Claire and Roger Wakefield and Brianna try to suss out how Jamie might have survived. Now, back in the 1700s, as we get Jamie's perspective, he's in Lollybrook, Scotland, and he's imprisoned for being a traitor. I mean, how many times this guy can be imprisoned throughout the course of these novels is astronomical. The dude just ends up in prison all the time. Now, once Claire and her daughter Brianna and Roger Wakefield find out that Jamie is survived this battle, well, Claire wants to go back in time. She wants to go back and be with her main love. That's what happens. Does she? Spoiler alert. I mean, that's a spoiler. I mean, because it doesn't happen for about half the book. Spoilery alert. Yeah, she goes back in time. I mean, that's the whole point of these books. They're time travel books. Of course she's going to go back. Anyway, once she goes back, she meets her. They're surprised. She's older. She's like 20 years older. And so is Jamie. You know, when they first fell in love in the original 2 books of the series, they were young. Now they're older. And they've both had 20 years of life experience. And I thought one of the touching scenes, which actually made me tear up. Not many things in books will make. Movies, I cry like a baby. Books, I never really tear up. But I actually did tear up in the scene where she shows Jamie photographs that she brought from the 1900s to the 1700s. She brought photographs of their daughter, Brianna. And that scene that lasts 2 or 3 pages where he's looking through these photos of his daughter, it's just so touching. And so I teared up. I don't know why, it touched me. That being said, there is a scene, so Jamie in these last 20 years has kind of become a scoundrel. He's like a smuggler. And of course Claire likes him because he's a scoundrel. I think that was also in Star Wars. But anyway, and she loves him for the drama that he creates. And speaking of which, I lost a fair amount of sympathy for both of these characters, both Jamie and Claire, about halfway through the book, when there's a misunderstanding between the two of them about what Jamie had been doing in the 20 years that they hadn't seen each other, and like he had omitted some information that maybe he should have told her. And the histrionics and the dramatic reaction from Claire was just a little over the top, and his dramatic reaction, but the drama and the crying and the weeping, I was like, oh my God, just get over it. You had to have known that something like this was probably going to happen. Why are you so surprised and so upset? And now she just wants to give up on the whole relationship over this. And I'm just like, that was a little over the top for me. But then I realized, you know what? Claire clearly thrives on the fact that Jamie is a scoundrel. Because even in book 1, he was not the nicest dude to her. But yes, she fell in love. And he's never really put up with her bullshit a lot of the way through. But she kind of likes the fact that he is this, semi-bad guy. And with the heart of gold, of course. But that's kind of her character. She thrives off of the drama that all of this brings her. Which, if you were to travel back into time to the 1700s Scotland, I imagine just automatically that would put a fucking lot of drama into your life. You would be like, the whole time. And I get it. But there's some people that would thrive off of that. I would hate it. I would hate everything about it. I do not want to live in the 1700s Scotland. I've been to Scottish castles to see. They suck. You would not want to live in one. And she doesn't even really live in the castles. She usually lives out in the countryside. Anyway, and which is another thing. She has to deal with the plague. You know, she's a nurse and she has to deal with this. Anyway, there's a lot of other fun moments where Claire is describing. She does a lot more. She tells Jamie a lot more of the future in this book than she's ever told him in the other books. And she talks about how, hey, back in the 1960s, we go to the moon, and his mind is blown by that, you know. She also writes letters which are touching, and I enjoyed these letters that she would write to her daughter, for her daughter to find and read in the future, and I really enjoyed those. And the grim realization of, you know, what the plague and how she faces that and how her medical skills deal with that. And then the ultimate mystery of the novel, which I will not give the spoiler to, is there's a big voyage. It's why it's called Voyager. There's a big voyage. They all leave Scotland and they want to go to the New World. But where do they land? This is the mystery. Do they land in Florida? Do they land in Boston? Do they land in the Caribbean? Do they land in Nova Scotia? Where is it that they end up on this voyage? Jamie and Claire, and a few of the other characters from the previous book. Again, so well written. One of my favorite series of all time. I love the fact that they're 1,200 pages of just absolute nitpicky detail of the time period they're set in, whether it's the 1968 or the 1746. All of it is done beautifully. And Diana Gabaldon is one of the greatest writers we've got. Everything she does. I love the detail. I love when authors take the time to just immerse us in everything they're trying to immerse us in without cutting corners. I love it. Just great. Another 10 out of 10 for Voyager.